Northwest Passage opens for business as Arctic warms. Businesses plan to profit off the melting ice in the Arctic. Online magazine Grist reports, as climate change continues to impact the Arctic, countries are planning to use the Northwest Passage as a shortcut shipping route. Currently, the Suez Canal and Panama Canal are used as major shipping routes in the world. However, in the future, ships traveling from Japan to Western Europe could be able to travel north through the Bering Strait to Europe. This would slash the travel route from 13,000 miles to about 7,000 miles and could potentially cut shipping prices in half. Ships traveling from Yokohama Port could also make the journey through the Northwest Passage to New York City in about 21 days instead of the standard 25 days, traveling 7,480 nautical miles instead of 9,720 through the Panama Canal. As the ships travel through the Arctic, some are worried that fossil fuels used by the vessels may harm the already fragile Arctic ecosystem. Scientists estimate that by 2050 there will be no more ice in the Arctic. Do you think getting cheaper goods is worth potentially causing more damage to the area? Stay tuned for more stories related to climate change. Global warming is killing our oceans. A new study predicts that within 15 to 20 years, human-caused deoxygenation will be felt across the world's oceans. With climate change warming seawaters, oxygen levels in the world's oceans are beginning to drop. Surface water with higher temperatures absorb less oxygen. Such surface water is also more buoyant, so oxygen is less likely to make it into deeper water. The resulting conditions are dangerous to marine ecosystems, which depend on oxygen for survival. With the threat already underway, changes in the southern Indian Ocean and parts of the Pacific and Atlantic will be felt as early as 2030. Oceans in eastern Africa, Australia, and Southeast Asia, however, won't feel the impact until the next century. Worsening the effects of deoxygenation is an increase in carbon dioxide, causing oceans to be more acidic and less habitable. Researchers say carbon emissions must be reduced if we want to slow the oxygen loss, but monitoring and understanding where the oxygen levels are dipping and how it's impacting our waters is also key. Florida's coastline threatened by toxic algae. According to a report from Tampa Bay Times, Florida's coastline is being threatened by toxic algal bloom, and it seems to be getting worse every year. CNBC reports an algal bloom is a rapid increase of the population of algae in a relatively short period of time and can take place on freshwater or marine water systems. Algal bloom is caused by the overabundance of nutrients, nitrogen, and phosphorus. These nutrients typically come from rainfall and wastewater outflows. The nutrients combined with the temperatures of the sea, sunlight, and water movement can work to trigger an algal bloom. According to the EPA, the toxic blooms hurt marine life by blocking out sunlight, as well as creating toxins that hurt small fish and shellfish after they consume it. Not only do the algae hurt the environment, they also end up creating dead zones in the water where aquatic life can no longer survive because of the lack of oxygen, forcing marine life to either leave the area or die. Tampa Bay Times reports environmentalists are urging the state government to do more to address its polluted water. Snow in the Sahara? Sounds like climate change. The head of Russia's environmental monitoring agency says increasingly frequent snowfalls on one of the hottest places on Earth stems from global warming. On January 7th, a blanket of snow fell on the Sahara Desert, near the northern Algerian town of Ain Sefra. The Sahara has been known to get as hot as 122 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, but while temperatures drop at night, it's unusual to see snow due to the dry air. In 1979, snow fell in the area for 30 minutes. It was 37 years before the next snowfall, but only a year passed between then and the most recent one, which saw 15 inches of snow cover. This, along with a cold spell in the US, an unusually warm Russian winter, and rainfall and flooding in Western Europe, it's evidence that global warming is on the rise. With the state of the climate as dismal as it is, and with no signs of improvement, guess there will be more extreme weather in our future. Yikes.
Asia's glaciers are shrinking. With Asian glaciers facing a massive melt by the end of the century, millions of people are at risk of water shortages, and it's all thanks to global warming. The high mountains of Asia lie in a region surrounding the Tibetan Plateau and contains the largest store of permanent ice outside the North and South Poles. Meltwater feeds into major rivers like the Indus, Yangtze, and Mekong, and are used for drinking, hydroelectric power, and irrigation. Scientists predict that Asian high mountain glaciers will lose a third of their mass by 2100 if the global temperature rises 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. If temperatures increase 3.5, 4, or 6 degrees, losses could reach 49, 51, and 65% respectively. Glacial loss could affect the region's water supply and lead to shortages. At the same time, accelerated melting could trigger intense flooding, especially when combined with climate change-induced heavy rains and super typhoons. High warming scenarios carry worse consequences, including massive sea level rise, floods, droughts, loss of species, and even disease. The only way to avoid such a dismal future is by minimizing global temperature rise. And for that, we need to double, even triple efforts to combat climate change.
The hottest place on Earth. The U.S. Northeast may be experiencing record-breaking low temperatures, but in the land down under, Aussies are melting from the sweltering heat. Sydney became the hottest place on Earth on January 7th, with temperatures in the western suburb in Penrith reaching 47.3 degrees Celsius. It was a few degrees shy of breaking the record for hottest day in the area, a 47.8-degree temperature recorded in Richmond in 1939. The hot weather combined with strong winds increased bushfire occurrences, prompting certain areas to issue a total fire ban prohibiting open-air fires, welding, barbecues, and throwing lit cigarettes, among others. The heat caused higher than normal ozone levels, prompting a forecast of poor air quality, which could affect those with respiratory problems. Extreme temperatures also affected train track infrastructure and contributed to power outages, which affected roughly 3,000 properties throughout Sydney. The next few days are expected to be cooler compared to Sunday's scorcher, but still relatively hot.